da, da, da. Let's see, let's see. All right, get ready, get ready. Hello, hello, hello. Uh-oh, shucks, I was already online. Hello. I hope, look, I am still trying to get set up here. Seems like I am running a bit behind, and my sidekick is not here, and I am. So we are going to get started at any rate, because that's what I do. So good morning to you. Good morning to you. We're all in our places with nice shiny faces. I will tell y'all today, I don't know what is going on with me today. I woke up in the 4:30 spectrum. Like, I think I got up at probably about 4:47, got out, got in the yard, got my so-called workout in. I was just not feeling like exerting that much energy today, although I did jump rope a little bit and I did a lot of walking and some stretching and some steps. I just did not push it. And so, and then when I get all set, I did my journaling, I did my meditation, and my writing is still, I didn't do any writing today. I'm not even gonna lie about it. I didn't do any writing today. Y'all, I don't know if you noticed or not, but I got a thing for James Baldwin, and somebody, Kimberly Archibald, put up a little link to a video by James Baldwin, and I had to watch it and then kind of think about how that felt for me. And just it he always puts his finger on the pulse of sometimes what I'm feeling. And so when I watched that this morning, I was like, yes, ooh. And and sometimes that comes out in the things that I talk about, what I say here, what I write about in my book. It is those kind of things get their tentacles into you and makes you want to have a discussion around them. It makes me want to have a discussion around them. Sometimes we are so asleep. People are so asleep. As a matter of fact, it seems as though people will take the attitude like, oh, this is too much, like, and I know, because I do it too, right? Some things just seem like they're too much. And I recognize that feeling of it being too much can lull us back into doing nothing. You get overwhelmed, and that overwhelm leads you into paralyzation, and that paralyzation causes you to just go to sleep, and it's just so many things over and over again, and therefore we can never really get to the root of what it is that we're dealing with. And so for me, I try to stay woke, right? I want to stay woke. That is my goal, to stay woke. And then at the end of this video, Baldwin he's kind of saying, I don't know what the woman asked him, but he says, yeah, I guess I'm bad. I guess I'll be a disturber of the peace. And I thought, yes, how awesome is that, to see yourself as a disturber of the peace. And it kind of reminds me of that biblical story about the guy beside the pool at Bethesda, and was talking about when the water was, when the water troubled, that was the time to get in it to get your blessings. And so sometimes we got to stir things up, because that's the time at which and seize the moment and don't let it pass by. And that's one of the things why I am always saying, like, don't look away, because you never know when that water is going to get troubled, or when the disturber, the piece, starts making some noise. And when that stuff happens, then it's time for us to seize the moment. So in this moment, what they do is that they decide, oh, we're going to make Juneteenth a national holiday, which should shut y'all up for a while, but it really doesn't, right? It really doesn't. And so at least I hope it doesn't, right? And so for me, it's been an invigorating morning already. I tell you, sometimes I just I and it's not that I get upset or angry or mad about it. It is that I feel so honored to be here in this time. Okay. So I did get a message from Stephanie. I don't know why I did not hear it. And she says, morning, we have 2 call-offs. So I know for sure I will not be able to stay online. Apologies for the, girl, come on. No worries, no worries. You know, I am so honored that she is so consistent and shows up and does this with me. I am so honored by that. Y'all just don't even know, because just because I commit to something doesn't mean that you'll have anybody else that commits to it. And I know that the energy and the vibration that she brings is awesome for me. And so I appreciate that, Stephanie, being here. And so yeah, I have no negative thoughts about that at all. Oh, bless your heart, babe. There she is. Bless your heart, bless your heart. So while I'm going through all of this, like, this emotional stuff this morning, I want to tell y'all about what came to my mind. So I have been, okay, so we are in the section on money on here. And in this section of money, it brings up a lot of stuff, right? A lot of stuff for, whoever has felt at the effect of the financial situation that goes on here in our country. And a lot of times what we do is because we are in a capitalist society, we've been raised with certain ideas. These things influence not only how we think about the world, but also how we think or perceive about ourselves. And so if we have with the poverty mentality, we are constantly scraping and struggling and trying to get or catch up. And sometimes we have the notion that it's us, because it seems like other people don't have the same struggles that we do. And so when we look around us, we start to make the assumption that, you know what, if that person is doing well, that person is doing that well, it must be me, right? And so there is this this feeling of, as Martin Luther King would have called it, a nobodiness feeling, like you are not seen, heard, or valued in this country. They call them right now, euphemistically, they're calling them essential workers, but really the essential workers are the non-essential people, right? Ooh, right. You've heard that, right? So they call them essential workers to euphemistically try to shift the awareness about, what people bring to the table. So it's essential. They're essential because we essentially need the services that they provide, but not essential in the idea that they are indispensable. right? Essential versus indispensable are two different things. And so what we find is that those people who are, as Bell Hooks would say, at the bottom of the well, those people seem to they seem to be in a situation where they don't know that they are catching hell. And so as we go through and journey through this and talk about it, if you are feeling somewhat disenfranchised or not honored, not seen, not heard, not valued in the way, it is by design. It is by design. And so, this is what we are talking about and working on and really working our way through here so that we can get into right relationship with this thing called currency. And if in part currency is a force that responds to us in our thinking and our feeling, the more you think about what you don't have, the more you won't have. And so we have to put ourselves in alignment with the flow of where we want to go. We got to put ourselves in the current, right? And that sometimes is easier said than done, especially when you've been trained to be outside of it. I want to just stay with that for a minute, because a lot of times I don't think we recognize what a big role our thinking and our vibrational energy carries. What do I mean by vibrational energy? We talked about this thing of energy the other day, the atmosphere that surrounds you, in which you are, in which you find yourself, the atmospheric understanding, the atmospheric pressure, the atmosphere that is yours, right? If you thought of yourself in the micro, like the macro, every one of us has an atmosphere. You may not see the clouds that come over, but when people know you, they can see the cloud right off, right? They can see when you've got what is it, when you've got disturbance in your field, because right off that is like something that shows you are not shining like a diamond all the time. I'm not shining like a diamond all the time. So when I'm shining like a diamond, I'm having a good day. That is, and just like the weather changes outside, moment to moment, we change according to our moods. And so it becomes, what is the atmosphere? What is the atmosphere and what is it allowing to come into your experience? And so if you want to be in alignment with your good, then that means that you have to be in a space where you have some expectancy or some room for it to come in. If you are busy thinking about what you don't have and what you can't get and that, right? Then that will be your experience. And so this is all about looking deeply into where we are atmospherically, each and every one of us. I'll say it that way. So let me tell y'all about a quick story before I delve into this, because today we are going to do or deal with some of the case studies that Carolyn Miss talked about in her piece here. And today, when I was getting ready, when I went in there and started trying to get myself together, it came up to me that some years ago, I'm always talking about people that I've dated, right? I know it sounds like, that girl have dated a lot. And as a matter of fact, I don't know if y'all remember that story where I was in the bathroom and there were two women I was in the stall and there was two women in there washing hands and they were talking about me. And the woman just kept saying, she dates a lot. I mean, a lot. I'm like thinking, like, whatever that means, right? Don't and the judgments that go with that, a lot. Anyway, so I have dated. Thank you, God. Knock on wood, right? That I am a dateable person. I don't know. Whatever judgments you have, that's your judgments about it. But mine is like, oh, thank you, God, that I am a person that is dateable. Anyway. So at one point I was at, I met a guy. He's a white guy. And I'm going to put him in the category of saying that he was very well off. I'll put it like that because without giving any names or anything like that, he was a person who has his name on some of these buildings out here, actually some developments out here, right? And so without giving out too much about him, he was, anyway, he has a lot of stuff around town. Anyway, so I went out on a date, a couple of dates with this guy. He used to drive this big black Yukon Denali, and all the windows were tinted. Anyway, one particular day, I'm on the phone with him, and we're discussing like what we're going to do. He wanted to go out, and we were discussing what we wanted to do. And then all of a sudden he tells me, well, he starts with this, what? He said, well, he was like, I'm talking to him and he's on a Bluetooth, Bluetooth. And so he was like, I hear him and he says, hold on, right? And I hear him, and what was happening is he was being stopped. He was being pulled over by a police officer. And so the window goes down, and before the officer could even say something, he started cursing this man out. What the F did you stop me for? I mean, he started, and I'm like thinking like, I just wanted to say, wait. I wanted to, there was a part of me that was on the phone, like panicking, because he started cursing this guy out so bad that I was just like in fear. If you guys could have felt what I felt, because I was just trying to get him. And then all of a sudden what I heard is this officer sounding like he was begging for forgiveness. Like, sir, I'm so sorry, sir. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yeah, yes. My mistake, sir. And I mean, it was just like that this officer was just turned into a little crying, babbling fool, because now he's being cursed out by somebody he realized was superior to him, I suppose. And so, the guy that I'm talking about started saying to him stuff like, saying names that saying a name that I didn't even know. He said, we golf together every goddamn week. Blah, blah, blah. I was like thinking, whoa. And, and so it really made me aware of, and this was not the first time, right? It really made me aware of the experiences and the difference in experiences that we have in this country based on class, based on proximity to power, based on a whole bunch. Our experiences are extremely different. And so when we come to this point where we are discussing money and the energy of money, this stuff, while it is powerful information, there is this notion, and for some reason I want to draw. I feel like I need to draw a picture. Like we got on one level, say for instance, this is ground level, and then we've got another level that exists below that's below ground level, and then we got another level below that people exist on. And the question is where are we in consciousness? How far below ground level are we in consciousness, so that we have to climb up out of the situation that we are in? So sometimes what has happened to us is we've been trained, we've been pushed down, degraded so much, right? By circumstances beyond our control sometimes. We are brought up, James Baldwin in this thing, he was talking about how he was brought up in an environment, which is what I talked to Rhonda Crowder yesterday about on the show. We're brought up in a powder keg, right? Or if you could think about just, if you could just think about the atmosphere that we exist in, some of us exist in, right? It becomes this powder keg, and there is so much compounded stuff that makes people crazy. It's crazy making stuff. So whether it's the potholes on the street or the noise in the neighborhood, people talk about light pollution. People talk about the signs and stuff that you see, right? Because a lot of times what we know is that little lady who wrote the book Tidying Up, I think it was called. It's a Japanese or Chinese lady. She was talking about our environment and how to make our environment more inhabitable. And so she was talking about bringing order to your home. And she said, and as I'm saying this, it's like her words are coming back to me. She was saying to some extent that we have so much that is pulling on our attention. And even if we're not paying attention to it, it's still there. So she was saying that about books, and she was saying about writing and stuff like that. Whether we are paying attention to it, focusing in on it or not, it is impactful because even though we're not consciously thinking about it, our consciousness is picking it up. So that idea of our subconscious mind, we've been told that over and over again, that our subconscious mind picks up on things that our conscious mind doesn't bring its attention to or is not aware of, but it doesn't mean that it's still not impacting and influencing. So maybe I need to close up some of these books. Maybe I need to, stop with, because I got stuff in my environment. And so you drive through a poor neighborhood and you see, not only do you see billboards, you'll see flashing billboards. You will see billboards for cigarettes or for alcohol or for making you think that you're not quite enough unless you're drinking some Crown Royal or I don't know. But we've got all of this stuff that just constantly tries to, but you don't see that up in suburban areas, right? Because they know that this stuff is an energy pull. It's an attention grab. And so this idea that we exist and add to that, right? Add to that. Not only are we dealing with all of this stuff as far as traffic and noise and people and overcrowding and there's countless things that we deal with on that level, but then you add to that helicopters flying overhead any old given time they want to, this menacing by police officers as they go down the street. You can do all of this stuff. They keep throwing it in the pot and expecting you to deal with it. Oh. And so what happens is it's no wonder that we have the situations that we have, because it is like that by design. So now, as we turn to Carolyn Myss and the anatomy of the spirit, I want you to really consider that, especially when we are so apt to judge and condemn the people that we see, right? The people that are in our communities. We talk about the ways that they show up without necessarily considering why they show up in that regard. And it's not just because they don't have access to things. A lot of times what we're doing is we're responding to that by design scenario. Right before I read this, let me convey this thought to you. There was a joke that I don't know if it's a joke or what it is, but they used to talk about that if you put a frog in a pot, if you tried to put a frog in a pot of boiling water, he would jump right out. But if you put him in a pot and you begin to heat that pot up slowly, he will cook to death because it doesn't register that that the water, first off, if it doesn't register that he's going to be dinner, right? It doesn't register because what you do is you gradually increase the heat. It makes him it makes them not necessarily recognize that they're in a pot that they're about to cook, right? I don't know if that's how it goes, the joke or the analogy, whatever it was called, but that becomes how a lot of people exist. It is this gradual, building and layering on, waxing, if you will. It's the process of waxing. You put a little bit on and a little bit more on and a little bit more on, and then after a while it's this thick. But if you were to try to put that on all at one time, you would have problems. And so as we kind of embark upon this particular work, it is no wonder that people don't recognize or don't readily see the bars that are on their own prison, right? Because, you don't see it until you run into it, actually. Anyway, so, so when she says in here that money should be seen as a tool and no more than that, it's really interesting because a lot of times when you don't have that, and what we know is that the right tool makes any job easier, right? When you have the right tools, it's really hard to get a nail to go in a piece of wood if you're using the heel of your shoe, right? But if you got a hammer, one that was designed to drive that nail in, if you got a nail gun, ooh, so sweet. But when you don't have the proper tools, it makes everything hard. And a lot of times what we are doing, we are working without the equipment that we need. And so we return to this work in talking about the energy of money. And we talk about it with in a couple of examples that she's about to use. So let me I want to just kind of read to you a little bit, and then we'll go from there. Even beginning to establish such faith is a mark of spiritual maturation. A spiritually mature person can act according to guidance that would strike the financially motivated person as foolish or risky. Counterintuitive is what we might say. So some people say that spiritually minded or faithful people will actually do what is called priming the pump. Priming the pump is what they used to do back in when they used pumps, or when they used wells or something like that. You would put water in order to get water out. If you've ever done anything mechanical in that kind of way, you know that you got to put something in order to get something out. So spiritually minded people know that you got to do something in order to get something. It just doesn't happen. So and so if you're financially minded, you're holding on really tight. You don't even invest. You don't even advertise, right? Because they'll say that if, they'll think that that's spending money, right? Rather than circulating money, or rather than letting your money work for you. And so they're busy worrying about what they have, right? Rather than trying to figure out, how do I prime this pump, right? Sandra, take your own lessons, right? So in many spiritual myths, heaven contacts the person who has faith and then directs that person by providing daily manna from heaven so that that person can accomplish an appointed task. Such myths partake very much of the symbolic meaning of the Safra of Yasad. Part of the manna received includes financial energy. Nowhere in spiritual literature, as far as I know, is there one reported incident of a person regretted following divine guidance. And so sometimes what we do, and I will say this, is sometimes we'll call it divine guidance when you know it's just your darn ego sometimes speaking to you. I mean, really, sometimes we have to be honest enough with ourselves to say that this is ego driven. This is what, you know, because I used to tell people that when God spoke to me, or when God speaks to me, usually God is such a smart aleck, right? I cannot seem to get, this is like I'm sorry, a by thought or a distraction. You know, ever since I had my nails, my acrylic nails taken off, my nails have not been right since, and they break like spontaneously. Like I'm sitting here and it just kind of got broke, just kind of broke, and they get jagged, and it just is really irritating. And somebody said to me that those drills that they use sometimes to take off stuff messes up your nail bed, which then in turn leads to these spontaneous breaks. And so that's why I do that. Sometimes I carry a file around everywhere I go, because even though I got it, I took them off back at the beginning of when the COVID thing first started. They still have not gotten back right. So anyway, that's an aside point. But so a lot of times people will say, well, God said such and such, and I'm like, God is usually a smart aleck when God is talking to me, right? I'll get stuff and just, you know, like, well, what did you think, kind of, you know? And other people be having these whole like long things about what they say. God said, God told me that, if this, that, blah, blah. And I'm thinking to myself, like, man, mine's is very a God of very few words, right? It ain't all of that. So not judging it, I'm just saying, sometimes we do bring meaning to things ourselves, and then we oversplain things. And so it, you know, so sometimes maybe it's just the embellishing of the story. I don't know what that is, but anyway. So anyway, let's kind of embark here. I know I've already read some. So she starts to talk about this guy, Andrew, who at the time he came to see her was 27 years old. And she was like saying that he had this dream that he moved to Montana. And so she was like, oh, well, you know, okay. And he was like, I ain't never been to Montana. I don't know anything about Montana. Where is Montana? He was kind of like in that kind of vein. And she was like, well, if you keep having a dream about it, maybe you need to find out about it and consider it. And he was like, no, I live here. This is my home. I got a job here. I don't know anybody in Montana. And she was like, well, okay, you know. So then she says that 6 months later, she heard from him again. And he says that the dreams were continuing, only now the sensation about the financial benefits of staying put were making him feel like a prostitute. Now, we've talked about that idea of the prostitute and feeling as if you are selling yourself, or selling yourself out, whatever, selling your dreams, selling your birthright. And sometimes we are in a situation where we are being a prostitute in our own lives. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're standing on the corner, but it does mean that you are bargaining off a piece of yourself in exchange for something. So he says he thought of himself as a man of honor. And when the dream suggested that he was compromising his honor, he found it difficult to get through his days. Again, I encouraged him to move to Montana, she said, only now I told him to make the trip as soon as he could. Now, remember that we have certain motivations, things within us that are put there. I always say that desire, the word desire comes from DE. This is Sandra's thing, right? I don't even know where I got it from, but this is Sandra's thing. So DE in Latin means of, and sire is saying the Father, right? Father. So of the Father, desire. Those things for me, when I get a desire, I don't look at them just as something that wells up in me, but I feel like I get it from on high. I don't know where you perceive the desires of your heart are coming from. Some people might say that it is an intuitive urging, something that is saying, hey, go here, try this, consider that, right? Some people would say that's intuition. I say it's God, whatever you perceive it as. When you ignore those types of things, they have repercussions on you and on your health. And depending upon why you are resisting the desires of your heart, those things can impact you in a very profound ways, right? So, and so for him, because these dreams kept coming and kept coming with such frequency, and then to make him feel a particular way about himself meant that if he kept resisting, he was then therefore going to set up a dis-ease within his own body. And so she was saying to him, you know what, you need to drop what you're doing and go to Montana. So the next morning he called to tell her that he had quit his job. A feeling had come over him when he walked into the office that morning that said he simply had to act on it. When he announced that he was moving to Montana, his associates figured he had landed a new position there. He told them that not only did he not have a job or any promise for one, he was in fact following a dream. He didn't even know anyone, right? And so it says within a month of his resignation, he moved to Montana. He ended up renting a room in a home of two people who owned a ranch, started working on the ranch doing chores. They just kind of hired him. This is one of those Luke and Laura stories out of what was that back in the day? I don't even know what that was, but landed in Montana, went to work on a ranch, didn't know anything about that work, but he started, helping out around the farm. And it says that that he decided at Christmas time he wasn't going to go anywhere for Christmas. And so he was invited to hang out with the family, ended up meeting the daughter who came home for Christmas. And then I don't know, over the next 5 years, he learned how to manage the ranch and ended up marrying the daughter. Okay, all my children. Yeah, whatever that was. Thank you, Gretchen. But ended up marrying the daughter. And so it was this urging, this nudging that was saying that your future, what your desire is someplace else. And so go there. And a lot of times we get these inklings, we get these urges, and then we don't respond to it. Talk to yourself, Sandra, right? We don't respond to it. We just let it go dormant and then wonder why. When finally we have lived these lives that have been lackluster, right? These lives that are, way less than what's possible for us, we wonder why. It's because we don't follow those urgings, those desires. We don't follow that gentle nudge that tells us that we should be someplace else, that we could go someplace else, that your prayer could be in that nudge, in following what it is that you are told to do. So by following his dream, let me read this. Andrew declared himself to be a free man, whether or not he realized it. Now, when you think about that, he declared himself to be a free man. That means, let me see what she says it means, and then I'll go back to it. His actions were a statement before heaven that it was more important to him to face the unknown than to compromise his honor for financial security. In return, he received far more than he ever dreamed possible. So what does it mean for you to be a free human being? I mean, and not to allow life to dictate to you what you're going to do, who you're going to be, right? not to allow fear of the unknown, not having a job, not none of that stuff, right? And when we are allowing things to dictate our choices to us, then we are leading like these lackluster, captivated lives. And I think it's important for us to make a distinction, for us to have the courage to step into the possibilities for ourselves. Sometimes I am amazed at myself at the things that I say yes to, as well as the things that I say no to. And there are things that I say no to, right? And sometimes we do it in the name of ease and comfort, right? How often do we not even date somebody in a long distance relationship because, oh, it's not comfortable. That's not comfortable for me. Nobody has to take your candy from you. You throw it away even before they get there. We do a threat detection and we just throw it away. Throw it away. But it is things like this. And sometimes when we hear it, I tell myself all the time, when I read something, it's not by accident. Sometimes I will go someplace and I will get something or pick something up. And when I read it or when I see it, I know that it's meant just for me. Right. We know it's meant just for us. And yet, yeah, that one don't work, right? That's how we convince ourselves. Yeah, no, no. We do that dance. No, can't do it. Right? Yeah. Answer to your prayer shows up and we don't have the courage to say yes to it because we got conditions. So anyway, I'm talking to myself too, right? I'm not just talking to you, I'm talking to me too. So I'm laughing at my own self, right? This is me. I'm just laughing at myself. So, and so remember, we are still in the second chakra. These are the sex organ chakras, and it deals with this idea, issues of money and power and sex. And so she says, given the numerous sexual messages that are a part of our culture, it's not easy to develop a healthy sex life. Oh my God. No kidding, girl. As illustrated in the following case study. It's not easy to develop a healthy sex life. No, it's not. No, it's not. and you thinking that you jumping up and down in bed is not a healthy sex life. That is not what a healthy sex life does make. It is, and sometimes we do that sense of detachment, that sense of not giving an opening of ourselves and our hearts and our heads all in the act. And we just show up and think that it's all about our bodies and our bodily functions, and it's not. So she talks about a guy, Alan, who was 28, and he contacted her for a reading, stating that he was afraid of women and he needed help understanding why. And she said, as she did his reading, she recognized that he was impotent. And she received a strong impression that Alan saw himself as a sexual pervert. And yet I did not get the sense that he had actually ever molested anyone. So he did not have the energy of somebody who had molested a child. So I was confused about the imagery. So she started having a conversation. And so she said that she shared his impression with him. And so he started telling her about something that happened when he was a teenager. And he said that him and a group of other boys got together and had and participated in what was called a circle jerk. And he says that, so a circle jerk is when people get in a circle and they all jerk off together, masturbate together. And she says so right while they were in the midst of doing that, all of them just standing around about to get themselves off, a mother one of their mothers walked into the room, and oh, she started having a fit, and called them a bunch of perverts. Oh my gosh, can why would you do that? And then she started calling. It says that she called the other kids' parents, and then she called the school and told the principals and all of that stuff. And then the information got out, and they were basically ostracized at school too. They got this label of being perverted, kids, boys, young boys, as if they were doing something that was wrong. And so as she conveyed this story, she said that they felt like they were shunned, felt like they were shut out, felt like people looked at them a particular way. She was saying that this led to a whole bunch of psychological problems for them. And she said that she said to him, she says he admitted that he was impotent, and then said that he still had not ever had a date. So his only sexual experience had been with these other boys in his hand in a room. And so it had not gone any farther than that. And so she said that she said to him that circle jerks are actually very common, and so common that they could almost be received as or perceived as a rite of passage by teenage boys. And he says, well, I don't believe that. He had taken on the identity of being a sexual pervert because that was what that mother said. That was how he was treated. That was what was going on. And that he agreed then to seek counseling to deal with the problems or the judgments that he had against himself based on that, because it was coloring the way that he was able to interact and see the rest of the world. And so sometimes we receive messages, and those messages, even though not quite as traumatic as what this young man went through, but sometimes we receive very subtle messages that tell us that there is something inherently wrong with us when we have particular desires. So whatever the messaging is that you've received, really challenge that, right? Really challenge that for yourself, right? So even if this woman one time told me, I was at Cleveland Heights Library, and I was in the computer lab working on minding my own business, right? Working on some project. And this woman, she starts talking to me. Not saying that that's a big deal, but she started talking to me. Some people call it witnessing, right? And she said to me, didn't know me from Adam. And she said to me, she was trying to tell me about saving myself for marriage. And she says that when you give a man your body, you've given him the only thing that you have of value. What? I was like, what? Like, what? Wait, like, do I have to really sit next to this woman for the next hour? Because that's what I signed up for on this computer. Do I have to listen to this stuff for the next hour, right? I have given him the only thing that I had of value, which was my body. Are you serious? That's where my head went. Are you serious? But you know what that is? It's one of those things that if I was a person of, some people are very impressionable. And they will take that and think that that's the only thing that they have of value. Come on now. Is that all you are, is a body that is perishable, a body that will someday die, are you serious? And so, because I was younger. So I wasn't outraged by it. I was like sitting up there processing it in terms of, I have been raped before. So are you telling me that somebody already took the only thing I have of value, and therefore what, I'm no more valuable? Are you serious? And so that became another thing that you have to, for me, I had to work through. I had to process that thought. And so a lot of times what we see is that we see our teenagers, we see youth that is shut down and challenged because somebody introduces a thought that doesn't jive with where they are in their life. And so then you walk down around with this sense of, again, the nobodiness feeling, because now she's told me I've given away, somebody's taken the only thing I've had of value. And so now who am I? Where am I? What am I to do? And that and at a certain point, we've got to look at this, and that's her story, right? That's her perspective. It ain't mine. And I don't have to accept it. One of the things I used to tell people all the time is if the shoe don't fit, take it off. Darn it, don't walk around in shoes that are too small for you or that are not yours. Take that mess off. And so whatever your judgments are about yourself, right? That you know, if you think that you're too fat or you're too skinny, if you think that you're not intelligent enough, or if you're not, you know, the perfect for whatever it is that you're desiring, start to unpack some of that bull stuff that we've been told. Because at a certain point, you know, listen, the energies of the second chakra subtly bring up memories that need to be released. I love her. Constantly presenting us with a desire to act to become more whole in body and spirit, right? And so really that's what we're doing, that remembering. If you don't, if you did, I don't know what day that was that I told the story about remembering, but to bring back all of our severed parts into this one whole. And so if we don't evaluate our thinking, if we never ask ourselves questions, is this true? Right? Is this really true? Not, and here's the thing, because I, you know, I talk about all the time this appeal to authority that we have. We've got this appeal that takes us into a space, back into a space that sometimes is not the truth in the first place, but because it has an air of an authority about it, we accept it without even questioning it. And so we have been taught to defer to the Bible. We've been taught to divert to our elders. We've been taught to education. We've been taught all types of things, and we don't really see the facade, right? We don't see that there is a man behind the curtain that's acting as if, right? He's pulling all the strings. We don't really see that. And so until we open our eyes, until we begin to question, ask ourselves the question, is this true? Right? Am I nothing without money? Is that true? Right? Is that the only thing you bring to the table? Money, security? Is that true? Does your worth lie in what you have in your pocket? And so we see people all the time who tell us the stories about their rag to riches stories, right? So this guy in his move to Montana, wherever he was before, it doesn't really say, he was struggling. He was struggling. It was, you know, it wasn't as if he was, you know, living and working, you know, living his best life or anything. He was struggling. And so sometimes what we have to do is recognize that we may need to just use this wonderful thing called faith to step out into the unknown. Sandra, step out into the unknown and just try. I tell you, this, you know, this stuff is really beautiful. And so, you know, as I think about this, and I think about this big old world that's out there, one of the things that James Baldwin did, I go back to him, I started with him, but one of the things that he did was he left this country. He left this country and he went to Paris to live, because in Paris he felt a, a different way, right? He felt that he could be fully the man that he was with all of his contradictions, right? I'll put it that way, with all the contradictions in his being. And so one of the things that they were talking about was when he wrote the book, Giovanni's Room, and Giovanni's Room was about homosexuality. And the woman was saying, well, is it that you wanted to, declare to the world that you were homosexual? And he says, when you admit it, when you put it out there, that's one of the things that I say about shame. When you put it out there, nobody can then use it against you. He was like, that wasn't the goal, or that wasn't the mission. He says, but once it became something that was out there, nobody can no longer blackmail you with it, or try to scare you back into submission or back into your place when you put it out there. And so there are some things that we need to really just own up to. Look at it. And until, you got to admit it to quit it. So sometimes you can't even heal the things that you won't admit to. Stephanie would say all the time, you can't heal what you won't admit. Because you can't bring light to it. Even a cut or wound that you have, it's got to have light. It's got to have air in order to heal. And that's the same thing with the internal wounds. It's got to have air. It's got to have just, light in order to heal. That's part of the process. There is something wonderfully cleansing and healing about what's natural. Hiding things away is just not that. And so partly that's, when I sit here and I tell y'all all my stuff and I'll tell you all my business, that's partly too one of the reasons why I do it, because I know that I'm not diminished by the things that have happened to me. And if you see that you're not diminished by the things that have happened to you, the circumstances in your life, situations you find yourself in, when you see that, you're more than likely, able to then bring those to light, I would hope, right? Let this be a lesson to you. All right, so I am going to knock off. I know it doesn't seem like it's a little early, but it is a little early because where I'm stopping at it, we start with the next section, which is called ethical energy. And I would tell y'all, everybody knows almost that I was a philosophy major in college, and I love ethics. I love ethics and symbolic logic and the challenges that it causes us to confront. And so that is the next section, is on ethics. So I love that the questions that it brings about, but also I love to challenge the narrative that we've given ourselves, because a lot of times what we've done is we've taken and we've embraced somebody else's cultural narrative and then made it the gospel truth, right? As opposed to seeing the holes that might exist in it. I talked to Rhonda about this yesterday. I was on this kick this morning about, the wool that has been pulled over our eyes to blind us to the truth. I do this all the time because it's the Matrix. It's almost like one of my favorite lines, to turn us into one of these, a copper top. And what does a copper top do? It's the battery, it's the fuel, it's the energy for the system, to maintain the system. And if you are busy just maintaining the system and have not realized your own self-interest, right? Man is generous out of his own self-interest. If you haven't realized yet your own self-interest, you need to just, sit back for a minute and figure that out. I had a guy that I dated, another guy that I dated. I've mentioned him before, but not by name anyway. But I remember saying to him one time, like, I deserve better than this. I was like very clear on what I deserved. And, he turned around and he looked at me and he said to me, he says, I don't know what I deserve. And I was like, well, that becomes part of the endeavor. What do you deserve? And it's hard to give yourself what you deserve, when you don't know what you deserve. And sometimes you really have to think about that. Because a lot of times what we do is we attach ourselves to somebody else, right? um and when I was thinking about what I deserved, it was as far as, I, I want to be adored. It's important for me to be absolutely adored. I'm not trying to be with somebody or deal with somebody who doesn't adore me. This guy, this knucklehead, this a Neanderthal, right? He gonna tell me one time, you ain't all that. And I thought, yeah, okay, boy, bye. Right? I mean, that's where I'm at all day long. Boy, bye. Go on. So when you know what you deserve, you are less likely to settle for some okey doke mess, right? And so it becomes this thing of, figuring out for yourself what it is that you think you're worthy of. Because I tell you, people will sometimes just rise to the level if they do that, right? Because sometimes they want to beat you down and convince you, like this society has done, that you don't deserve more, right? That you just lucky to be here and lucky to be with me. That's some bull stuff, right? That's some bull crap. So it becomes this thing of really just kind of yeah, checking in with yourself and seeing what it is that you want, how you want to be treated, how you want to be talked to, how you want to be looked at even, right? um those things are important. I so so this whole thing, this is, sometimes we sell ourselves off. Talking about this money and the prostitute archetype, we sell ourselves off for way less. Sometimes it is just an association. Ooh, I gotta, ooh, I'm dating a doctor, or ooh, I'm dating the heck with how he's treating you, or what he's doing, whether they beating your butt or not, or hiding you in a closet or not. We just caught up on the title, or caught up on the money, or caught up on something else, some stupid stuff. That would be a prostitute archetype. You're selling yourself for what is it called, proximity, or you're selling yourself off for a perception that other people might have of you. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. I mean, I'm just saying, think about this stuff, right? I'm not saying that you got to adopt my attitude, because that may not even be yours. You may like the bad boys. You may like somebody that's going, debase you or call you names in the midst of making love to you. You might like that. I ain't that girl. I'm not that girl. I'm not even close. I'm not even close. And if that's your thing, maybe you need to check out, why is that my thing? Why is that my thing? Why, what is it about me that wants that, and an unexamined life, who is that said that is not worth living? You got to think about some of this stuff. Think about it. And until you start to clean out that toxicity in your system, it just kind of continues to be like that funky stuff in your refrigerator. It gives off a odor, and you don't know where it comes from, and it just gets, what do you do? Just let it linger there until it just loses all of its life, and just, now it's all, this little twitching thing over in the corner of your refrigerator that used to be alive, used to smell, but now it's even dead past that. Come on, come on, come on. Clean out, clean out, clean up. Just become aware. That's all I'm saying. All right, y'all. I'm gonna go. Hopefully that's not your sexual organs that's doing that too, right? I just saw that, like that imagery came in my mind. Yeah, don't let that stuff linger there. Breathe some life back into it, resuscitate it. Just, learn how to adore it. No matter what you perceive it or think about it, adore it. All of you. Why not take all of me? I started out this thing singing. Oh, I'm crazy. I love it though. I love it though. I love some me. All right. Yeah, I'm gone. Have an amazing day. It's Thursday, so have an amazing Thursday. I will see you here tomorrow, God willing. The creek don't rise, and maybe Stephanie, you'll be with me tomorrow. I don't know, but we will be on the ethical energy tomorrow, and I hope that serves as a blessing to you as well. So, all right. So blessings, love to y'all, and I'll see you tomorrow. All right. See ya.